As a practice owner, it's true that you treat patients. And when you get busy and in the groove during the day, it's really easy to forget that patients are people. You're supposed to do a great job clinically, but what about the rest of the experience patients have with you? My guest today has structured his practice around the full patient experience, and he's going to help us understand what he means by that. I'm Carl White, principal at Mark Advisory Group, which is a healthcare marketing agency, and I'm also the host of Practice Care. The mission for both is the same, and that's to help private practice owners stay private. It's better when the provider owns the practice. They get to make the clinical decisions they think are best, everything from treatments to scheduling, how much time a patient gets, you name it, they're calling the shots. It's different when somebody else owns the practice. They get to call the shots in some cases, and usually patient care overall quality of patient experience suffers. So let's just keep it private, get rid of all that. My guest today is Michael Sonick. Michael is an internationally known, highly regarded authority in the field of dental implantology and periodontology. A full-time practicing periodontist in Fairfield, Connecticut, he's also a frequent guest lecturer in the international program at NYU School of Dentistry and the University of Connecticut School of Dental Medicine. He lectures worldwide on the subject of aesthetic implants, periodontal plastic surgery, guided bone regeneration, comprehensive treatment planning, and the delivery of exceptional customer service. He's the author of the book Treating People, Not Patients, and co-editor of the multi-language textbook Implant Site Development. He serves on the editorial boards of numerous journals, including the Compendium of Continuing Education, the Journal of Cosmetic Dentistry, Inside Dentistry, Dentistry Today, and also writes and publishes numerous papers in peer-reviewed journals. Dr. Sonick is a diplomate of the American Board of Periodontology, a diplomate of the International Congress of Oral Implantology, a fellow of the American Academy of Implant Dentistry, a fellow of the International Team for Implantology, a fellow of the International Society of Periodontal Plastic Surgeons, and get ready for it, an Eagle Scout, as if the rest of it weren't enough already. His mission is to improve the quality of patients' lives as well as the lives of everyone he meets. Dr. Sonick, Michael, you clearly have a whole bunch of stuff going on, but thank you for carving out some time to come on Practice Care.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've had a practitioner come on. That's just sort of the nature of kind of hunting for guests. So this is going to be a very welcome episode. And the topic of, hey, people are people 24/7. They're patients only when they're in your chair. How easily is that forgotten? I'm looking forward to this one. Before we get into that, I always start with every guest. Hey, tell us more about yourself. That bio was kind of brief. Your bio was a touch longer than normal, but there's clearly more to your story than your professional and academic, achievements. So help us get to know you a bit better.
Sure. I've been practicing for 40 years in the same location. So
Wow.
well, I actually moved 100 yards.
To be
So,
precise.
yeah, it's in my hometown. I mean, I'm 400 yards from where I went to high school, so I didn't get very far
Wow.
geographically, which is very cool. If you look at like the things that they talk about with longevity and the blue zones and health, diet, exercise, sleep, mindfulness. It's also like having a sense of community. So I'm in my community that I grew up with. So when I go out to Whole Foods or the local restaurant, I mean, I did the numbers. It's pretty much 1 out of every 10 people I see is a patient,
Wow.
basically because I've been here 40 years in practice, and all the
Wow.
thousands of patients I've seen. Not that I know them or recognize them or they recognize me. So I'm in the community. I do a lot of teaching, all over the world. So I'm based here, but I'm in New York a lot. I've been at NYU for 40 years. I have a place in New York, so we're there a lot. So
Mm-hmm.
New York's only an hour away by train, so it's
Mm-hmm.
it's it's a great life. I'm only a mile from the office, so when a patient calls me on a weekend, if I need to see them, I can just pop in. It's really not a big deal, which is sort of like related to the book, Treating People, Not Patients. So when a
Mm-hmm.
patient calls me on a weekend, I love that opportunity to be able to pick up the phone and be able to be there because a lot of times, it's like everything's going right, everything's going right. The really great times to build whatever business you're in, whether it's a dental practice or it's a restaurant, um, or you're a car mechanic or a lawyer, no matter what you're doing, when things go wrong, that's when you make your reputation. So when a
Mm-hmm.
patient calls me on a Sunday, my wife goes, "Oh, patient calls," and the first thing I think is great opportunity because how when you call your doctor at 10 a.m. on a Sunday, first of all, you feel really bad, and
Well, you
then
never get them. I mean, part
yeah,
two,
never
you never
got
get
it.
them anyway.
No, we have this whole system where they can get us. There's three of us, and the texts all come in, and one of us will get them. So I always jump at the opportunity, and I go, "Hey, hey John, how you doing? What's going on?" "Oh, I lost a tooth." and I'm going to Portugal this afternoon. I go,
Oy.
okay, yeah. Can you be in the office in 20 minutes? Because I'm only literally a mile away,
Yeah.
and there's no traffic here. So if I meet John in the office at 10 o'clock on a Sunday, he's going to Portugal. I mean, I can't buy that kind of marketing.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, I say, and I'll even say to John, I go, John, you can remember this for the rest of your life. I said, I did it, and I've since taken out John's tooth and done an implant. So, more about me, I'm just I have a family, 3 kids. My daughter's a dentist.
Hmm.
I'm my sports are, I do a lot of sports. I do a lot of, exercise. I think that's a big part of staying, giving a healthy life, is exercise intently. I've done that my whole life. Matter of fact, I'm a little late for this podcast because
It got
I
away from you.
yeah, I was supposed to go out. I went out at 6:30 this morning. It's 10:30 now. And I was supposed to go out for 2 hours. And my friend, who I haven't biked with in a while, which is another interesting story I'll share with you. He, he says, "Well, let's go further." Now I stopped riding my bike. I've been a triathlete and an athlete my whole life, and I stopped riding long distance 4 years ago. My story starts in dentistry when I was 8 years old. If I'm going on too long, just tell me.
Okay. A
But
little bit. Yeah, a little bit. Then we'll
everything
we'll, we'll
starts
hit to
talking.
the meat of it. Yeah.
But I
But
my
finish the story. Yeah.
when I was 8 years old, I knocked out my front teeth, and so I sort of in my area of expertise is cosmetics and implant reconstruction of the front teeth. So and then I've been biking my whole life. I haven't had another bike accident until I was 67. I'm 71 now, so it was almost 60 years later. I went over to handlebars. This was 4 years ago.
Hmm.
I knocked out my front teeth again,
Oh my God.
and broke 3 ribs, and I got a concussion, and I detached the retina. So that was 4 years ago. And so I stopped riding on the road and I started to dip back in a little bit. And I've been doing a little bit more. So today, when I went out with my friend, who was my long distance partner, he talked me into biking to the same place where I had the accident, which is 20 miles from here.
Okay.
And I just went up there and I sort of like faced my fear, which is PTSD or
Hmm.
from going over, which also relates to what our patients have. My patients come in, they all have PTSD. They've had bad experiences elsewhere and
Hmm.
they're very scared. And that's a
Hmm.
big part of, what we're going to be talking about today is
Yeah.
how do you connect with someone who's scared when they come into the office? Because almost
Yeah.
is.
Well, let's get into it. So the title of a book that you wrote recently, which I'm going to mention, it's called Treating People, Not Patients. It's the title of this episode. Let's just make sure we're all hearing it and talking about it the same way. When you say that, what do you mean?
I mean, that we taught in dental school and medical school procedures. Matter of fact, they're in most people are in insurance-based practice.
Hmm.
95% of all dentists are insurance-based, and close to 95% of all physicians, unless you're a specialist like a plastic surgeon.
Hmm.
But if you go see a regular doctor, it's insurance-based. If you go see a dentist, 95% are insurance-based. And even if you're not insurance-based, there's a code for everything. So you put the codes on. So in dental school, I was taught to do certain procedures, extract teeth, do veneers, implants, dentures, whatever, Invisalign, whatever it is. We were never taught about, well, I was taught because I had a different type of a professor there, but there's no course on human connectivity.
Hmm.
And, the joke is, I looked down, I was working on a tooth, and then, oh, I realized that the tooth was attached to a human being.
Is that right?
It's like this, people forget that.
Yeah.
And what my, when I'm a periodontist, so the classic periodontist gets referrals from general dentists that send them over. I've been in practice 40 years in the same community, so a lot of my patients are self-referred, but that's typical of a specialist. And when a dentist calls me up, the first thing they go, "I'm sending over a really good case." And like
Mm,
I go, "What's that? A good case? Are you sending over a human being?
right.
What are they about?" And I think about this every time I treat one of my patients. I think like they're a person. Actually, I just did a video this week. I had to take out someone's complete all of their teeth. They had 90% bone loss. The teeth were mobile. They had severe periodontal infection. They had been avoiding it for years. They were 30, it's a 37-year-old female losing all their teeth.
Wow.
So I did a little video right before I walked into the room and I put a picture up of her teeth, which were terrible looking, and the severe bone loss. And I said, I'm going to go in there. And most people say, oh, that's a great case. Let's do a new on four. Let's do a bunch of bone grafting. But that's not the way I'm thinking about that person. I'm thinking that I have a human being there that's been suffering for years and that this is the biggest day of her life because she's finally made a decision to take out her teeth and she's scared to death.
Hmm.
I knew she was. And we ended up treating her, and the procedure went well. But when she woke up at anesthesia, she started crying. She said she was in pain, but she wasn't in pain. She was just in emotional pain.
Mm.
I knew that. And so I knew that, and because I've been through dentistry myself and I can relate to where people are at, I knew that I have to speak with her. And everybody gets my cell number. If I hand you my business card, Carl, it has my personal email and my cell number on it. So my
Okay.
cell number is on every card. So she has it, but she may not know she has it. So we call her that night. I don't, my staff does. I don't call, my team calls her that night. I don't call the patients the night of surgery because they're numb and they're fine. They're sleeping. I call them the next day. And she was swollen. And I told her what she would feel like. And then I said, let me call you the next day. Now I normally don't call people every day, but her, I'm going to call her for 4 days in a row.
Hmm.
Connect. Not because she needs me for any advice, but she just needs me to be there to usher her through what is probably the most difficult time in her life.
Hmm.
And most doctors don't think of people that way.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've had some surgery. I never got a call at home from the doctor. I don't have my doctor's cell phone numbers. Maybe I get a fax number. And
Yeah.
if you get an email, it's like doctor at, at the organization at Yale New Haven, .com. You never get their personal email.
And you can't reply to it even if you wanted to,
Right. It
you know?
make it very difficult. So I think most doctors, and they don't do it because they're bad people. It's just the way they don't think about it. Unwittingly have put barriers between themselves and the people that they serve.
Yeah.
By putting those barriers there, they create a disharmony and a detachment. And so what happens is patients feel that they're not being taken care of. Doctors get stressed out because about 50% of all doctors and dentists probably wouldn't have done it again because of the stress level. And the stress
Mm.
level is very high because of the tension that you have with your patients. So by making that human connection, that tension drops, and then you have almost a spiritual relationship with the human beings that you serve. So I think it's a privilege to do what I do.
Hmm.
To be able to go in there and people to trust me to do what I do. I mean, if I just took a picture of it and I didn't know anything about it, I'd say, well, this is barbaric. He's putting a knife in their mouth and he's ripping things out and he's sticking them with needles and he's putting cadaver bone in them. This is crazy. And we may look back at it one day as being crazy because we'll have other ways of doing it.
Right.
But now this is what we're doing. And I mean, we do a really good job with it and we give people a whole new life. And that's why I practice to be able to do that. And I look at it as a very sacred relationship between myself and my patients. Especially I'm treating a young girl. Young girl comes in, she's 18 years old, she's missing her front tooth, as I was when I was 18, and she has an implant. It's the two patients that are the most stressed in my practice are the one missing the front tooth, a very healthy person is losing one tooth because no
Hmm.
perfect, or the person that's losing all their teeth. And I treat
Yeah.
but they're both scared.
Yeah.
However, what do I really like to treat? I really like to treat the people that has a little problem that hasn't become a big problem yet, because that's what I call paying it forward when they don't even realize I will never be thanked for saving someone's teeth when I do prevention.
Yeah.
I call it the leaky roof. You get a little leaky roof, guy comes over, fixes it. If you don't really fix it when it's early, it's going to, get through the foundation, get through the walls, it's
Yeah.
going to rot, and then all of a sudden you got to replace all the windows in your house.
Yeah.
Happens with people with periodontal disease. It's if I get to treat them when they have early periodontal disease, all they need is some cleanings and some extractions, they're fine. And then they won't thank me 20 years later for saving their teeth because they didn't know what was going to happen.
Right.
Those patients I really love to serve. And that's a big part of what we miss in dentistry and in medicine and prevention. We're not preventatively oriented. And I think as a race, I think the biggest problem humans have, if I was going to say there was one problem, is that we're short-sighted and we want, immediate satisfaction.
Hmm.
We see that slipping into almost everything. Now,
I want
everything.
to I want to ask you about just like a follow-up. You said, in your estimation, half the reason that, half of all providers wouldn't do it again is because of stress related to their patients. I don't hear that as the reason. And this isn't to challenge you, is to ask. The reason is, you know, there aren't enough hours in the day, the administrative crush, the increasing requirements, the constriction of choice, whether it's insurance or whatever. It's these are the reasons, but you're saying it's something different, or maybe you're just going a couple levels deeper. I don't know, but because if you're right, we need to get you like the biggest megaphone ever, because if that's really the reason, then people are missing the reason.
The reason is you're right. I mean, we're saying the same thing.
Okay.
They're just identifying it is stress. Right.
Hmm.
So I look at every decision I make through two lenses. Is this going to increase or decrease my stress? Is it going to
Mm.
make me more effective or less effective? So the best thing is let me do something that's going to decrease stress, mine and the people I'm serving, and make increase effectiveness. So, and if we look at everything that people say bothers them,
Hmm.
then we can there's a solution for that. So, if you want to give me an example, I mean, you meant administrative stress. Well, I don't do any administrative work. Somebody
Mm.
else does. Someone
Hmm.
else who likes to do it. So that's not my job. What I do in my practice is what I'm very good at. So I'm very good at connecting with humans and big relationships.
Hmm.
So you and I are talking because, we connected. My partner's not going to ever connect with you and talk. That's not what he likes to do. He actually likes to look at numbers and do surgery. So he's a really good surgeon.
Hmm.
So all those things that people look at that bother them in practice are things that they shouldn't be doing, that they should have other people doing. And one of my mentors, Dan Sullivan, says, it's not how, it's who. So
Hmm.
if you have a problem, find the who to solve it.
Yeah.
So I actually am the who to solve patient problems. I'm the who to do all the marketing. I'm a who to do all the relationships. I'm the who to give everybody the vision of the future.
Hmm.
I'm the who to make everybody in the team feel good on a daily basis. That's my
Hmm.
who. I'm not the who to do the things that meant the list that you mentioned. I
Hmm.
don't do any of those. Any of those things.
And
And
I'll admit, I hear them more from like, say, primary care physicians or, who say, for every, I'm making this up, but just to illustrate the point, for every 10-minute appointment, there's 30 minutes of paperwork, that charting and coding, like things that I have to write down the notes. And there was one study that said a primary care doctor today can do it as long as there's 26 hours in the day. And that was I was like, well,
yeah,
okay. And nobody talks about, if you just had a better relationship with your patients, a lot of this would go away.
primary care doctors. I mean, they've taken the insurance model, and this started back in the 70s and 60s. When Medicare came in,
Hmm.
and sort of and it was good initially. And when I got out of dental school in 79, so I was on the hospital staff, and I remember all the doctors and dentists talking, and the doctors go, "Oh, this is great. We have insurance. We just bill for this. We bill for this. We bundle. We may make a lot of money."
Hmm.
And the dentists go, "Well, we can't do that. We have a limit of $1,000 a year. We can't do insurance." And I'm thinking to myself, I'm never taking insurance.
Mm.
So I opened up my practice in 1985 and never took insurance, brought in other associates and partners, and they weren't busy. They go, "Well, maybe we should take insurance." I say, "No." So there's a 4-month waiting list to get into my practice,
Mm.
and I don't take insurance. And,
Mm.
and my partner, who's 10, he's 20, 30 years younger than me. He's been practiced 11 years. He's booked 2 months in advance.
Mm.
I'm bringing somebody else in, and they're going to start from zero, and we're going to build the practice. So we increase the value there. Now, if you're a physician that takes insurance and you're locked into the system, then the only way you can make more money is to see more patients or charge more, but you're stuck. You can't
You
charge
can't
more.
charge more. Yeah.
And so you're stuck in that model.
Yeah.
That's why there's a burnout more in some of the primary care positions. You can't find one. So what's happening in my community, I'm in Connecticut, is a lot of people are doing concierge doc,
Or direct primary. I was just going to comment on this too. Yeah.
and you can do that if you want to give good customer service.
Hmm.
But a lot of people are doing it and they're not giving good customer service because they're never taught how to do that. But if you want to give concierge care, you can do that. You can just there's nothing stopping you. You
Yeah.
can take insurance, but you can take premium for them to be into your practice, and you limit the number of patients that you see.
Yeah.
Part of the reason I'm booked so far in advance is because I don't rush people through the practice. Every new patient gets a full hour with me for a comprehensive examination, whether they're coming in for a minor problem or a major problem. They're still
Hmm.
get an hour of my time so I can educate them and talk to them. And I think that's where the real value is. And what happens in medicine right now is we're just medicine really doesn't, it's not really serving the purpose. I mean, we're really good for emergencies in the United States. You get in a car accident, you got to be taken out with the jaws of life. You're going to get great care. But if you just have some heart disease and you're overweight and you're just gonna get some meds, but you're not gonna get the counseling.
Yeah.
We taught about the diet and the exercise. You're not gonna be monitored as well. All the ancillary tests that aren't done, that aren't covered, they're not gonna be taken. So what you see is what's happening now is all the wealthy old guys in the United States, they're getting involved in longevity. So you have all these
Hmm.
conferences, with even Tony Robbins, who everybody knows. Tony Robbins has his own longevity center called Fountain of Life, which he started with Peter Diamandis, who's a thought leader out in California, whose group I'm involved with, Abundance 360, and Bob Harari, who's an orthopedic surgeon in Manhattan. He's a PhD and involved in growth factors. So they have a huge operation, but he's not the only one.
Yeah.
So you got Mark Hyman out there, and you got Peter Attia, who's got a best-selling
I
book.
heard a podcast with him. And it's funny you mentioned, we're great at really acute problems. Prior part of my career, I used to do a lot of work with European doctors. And one of them said to me one day, Carl, if I have some rare disease, I'm going to the States because you people will stop at nothing to fix it. But if I just need good old regular care, regular everyday kind of stuff, I'm staying here.
Right.
Because you people are terrible at that one. I'm like, yeah, you're absolutely, just walk down the street and you can tell. You can totally tell. But let me ask you, I mean, we're
There's
talking
some,
about,
I'm going to interrupt you for a
yeah,
sec. There's some data for that. Do you know what the percentage of the gross domestic product that we spend in the United States on medicine?
way too much given for what we get.
18%. So it's
Yeah.
almost 20%. 20% of every dollar spent in the United States is spent on healthcare. But if you look at the quality of healthcare internationally, we're about 10, 12,
Yeah.
And you're right, Europe is better. They say in Europe, when you go to a spa. In America, you go to a hospital. So if you go to a spa and you do fitness and those type of things, it's
Yeah.
better.
Yeah. Yeah. You can even see it in the breakfast. You could just see it. I remember having yogurt with a colleague and she's like, well, and I got 10 benefits of yogurt. I'm like, but it's just this grocery store. She's like, Carl, it's really good for you. And I know we can't measure it to the nth degree with 6 clinical trials, but come on, it's just, you should do this. And I was like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. So we're talking about treating people, not patients. You
Right.
wrote a book on this, and I do want to give it a plug. You sent it to me, and the comment I made to you before
Thank you.
we started recording is, a lot of people out there, no matter their profession, they're in their lane, and then they try to write a book about something else, which is not. I mean, you have a lot of experience, but between writing a book that's engaging and keeping it that way, I really do think you did a great job. It held my attention, which is, I mean that as positively as it can be meant. I read it cover to cover. I don't usually do that because I don't know, they just kind of lose their focus or whatever, but there's a lot of good lessons. It's an easy read, folks, treating people, not patients. And it leads me to the next question. It's just like this sort of, almost a playbook of things you can do, at least things you do that people can adapt from. So if you want to just give us like a couple of examples that people can just grasp more about what you mean, maybe some of the little things too,
Sure.
about when you say treat people, not patients. What do you mean?
Well, just for your listeners, if you go to my website, which is my last name, michaelsonic.com,
Yeah.
you can download a PDF, something that we call the little things. The little things are 8 pages of things that we do. There's probably about 500 things there.
It's in the appendix of the book too, right?
I think, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And it's all the things that we do as a practice that maybe distinguish ourselves a little bit, or we'll go a little bit above.
Mhm.
When you go to a restaurant, what do you expect? You expect the food to be cooked properly and the plate to be put in front of you and nobody to knock over your water glass. That's what's expected, but you don't expect to be wowed. And when anyone comes to a doctor's office, they expect it to get good care, and be treated okay. Nobody expects to be treated well in the doctor's office anymore. You got the glass window that's there. Can I help you? You got all the signage that's there saying insurance cards must be there. I mean, it's just terrible.
Mhm.
It's almost like they employ an anti-sales force team. So,
Yes.
we're
The
here, but
sales suppression team, right?
we do not want you to be happy. We do not. One of the things I always do, I never put
And
in
let's
my,
just get that out right away, right? As soon as you walk in, just don't be happy
I
for
take
this.
pictures of every front desk I go to. If I go to the optometrist or if I go up to Yale or dermatologist, it's terrible. I should just do a montage of all the front offices. We don't have a window in our, we have
Mm,
an open bay and you can walk in there and you're greeted by name. So the little things are all the things that make people feel heard and seen. Um,
mm,
I patterned my office after a fine restaurant. That's the model of the book. The model of the book is written by my mentor, after the model of Danny Meyer, who is the he's the guru in hospitality
mhm.
and restaurant business. He's not a household name, although, everyone knows him because, Shake
You've
Shack.
eaten his food. Yeah. Shake Shack, Union Square Cafe. I mean, he's the gamut. He's got the whole spectrum of amazingness.
And he's great. And he is like the god, and he has influenced all the other restaurateurs. And um, so there's a lot of what we want to give people the wow experience. And so I do that patterned after, what's called Zagat's, which was a restaurant survey. And it was like
Hmm.
food, decor, and service. Those are the three things that people used to judge a restaurant. You can have great food, but if the decor is not very good, um, probably not want to like, you won't like as much. If the service isn't good, you probably won't like it as much. But if all three are there, you're going to probably have a really great experience. So,
Hmm.
Carl, if I asked you, tell me about your top three restaurant experiences, you're probably going to come up with them at
Hmm.
some point because we remember those great experiences. One I had when I was overseas giving a course. But my three favorite restaurants, every time I go there, I have a great experience. So what are the little things that people can do? First of all, you have one time, as they say, how many times you have to make a first impression, and the answer is, of course, once. So what's the first impression? So there's all these touch points that where people will see you, your practice, before they ever meet you as the doctor. So for
Hmm.
example, if a patient sees me, by the time I see them, they've already had 10 opportunities to make a decision. And
Hmm.
it's going to be the referral. Who are your referral base? What's your relationship? Do you reach out to other people that are like-minded to who are similar to you? So one
Hmm.
of the things that I did a number of years ago is I only work with great people. So
Hmm.
or who I think are great. I
Right.
won't, if you're a bad doctor and you want to work with me, you send me patients, it's not going to work because we have a different philosophy. So, I can't work with them. So if someone comes in and says, my brother's a dentist in Ohio, I want to work with him. I go, nope, I'm not going to work with him. Work with a different team. So I make sure my team is there. Two, what does your website look like? Because 90% of the people go to your website. Most websites are cookie cutter. They're
Hmm.
not. Our website has 1,200 pages of material, including
Hmm.
videos of patients, including cases of patients, has me talking, it has everything possible. We have get good reviews. We have, I think, 800 reviews on Google, 5-star reviews. How did that happen? By giving great wow experiences. Is your phone answered properly? What neighborhood is your office in? If you're in a terrible neighborhood, don't expect to be busy because no one's going to want to go there.
Hmm.
What does your building look like? Well, I don't own the building, I'm not responsible for that. Well, I know you don't own it. So my biking partner today says that his wife went to the went to the manager of Stop and Shop in town and said, there's vines growing all over the building. He goes, well, I'll talk to the landlord. Well, if I happen to own my building, so it's different. But before I owned it, I used to go outside and clean the hallway. I put art in the hallway that I didn't own. I started my practice in the mall working for somebody else back in 1983. I mean, it was a mall practice. It was disgusting. I went on a weekend, paid the team to come in on a weekend. I bought the paint. I painted the office myself, and I hung my own artwork. Brought in what back then was cassette plays for people to listen to. My own little like Walkman, which was what we used back then.
Yeah.
Differently, glasses, and so make the decor as nice as possible. Greet the patient by name. Well, I don't know the patient is. Well, find out who they are before they come in.
Yeah.
Take a picture of the patient, put it in a digital chart. Well, there's the new patient, never can ever come in. Well, look them up on Google and then take their picture, put them in. So when they walk in, Carl, you've never been in my office before, but when you walk in, I go, "Hey, Carl, how are you? You must be our 9 o'clock patient." Man, does that
No
no
one
one
does that.
no one does it, and people love their own name. Oh, sorry, we're running a little late. Can I get you a cup of coffee? We have Starbucks. Okay, we have Verona blend. We have this. Would you like a tea? Give them all that. During COVID, we couldn't do that. Have a
Hmm.
selection of magazines. We get 20 different magazines that are up to date. You're not reading about the World Series 4 years ago. Okay,
It's so
you're not doing
true. It's so
order
true.
free magazines.
The
These
only
are
thing left are those stupid card outs where you can order your subscription, which nobody and they fall. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
highlights.
funny.
The highlights ones, and the other one now that one is
Right.
what's called.
Right. Oh,
What's the
there's
one?
this new show called Cheers debuting in the fall. Really?
And then there's what do you call it? The old magazine, for older people, which I am now. What is it called? I can't remember what it is, but for people who are over 55, they'll put
Mm,
those up because those are free. You see those in doctors' offices.
right.
I mean, just make it nice. Invite your patient into your practice like they're a customer in your home.
Hmm.
And what's another tip? Have great people working for you. Well, that's a big problem. I can't get any good people to work. The good people don't want to work anymore. Since COVID, nobody wants to work. Well, that's a bunch of hooey, you
Yeah.
know? You can get great people. We have a great team.
Hmm.
And I have a whole chapter on how to hire, and I have a whole video series on how to hire, which is there's a whole science to it.
Hmm.
How to hire. And I was actually on the phone yesterday for an hour and a half with the guy who taught me all that with my team. So we can go through all the different. We do a personality profile on everybody.
Hmm.
So before I even do an interview, I already have their personality profile. If they don't fill it out, I don't even interview them.
Hmm.
So I don't even look at the resume. So we have a whole system for that. There's so many things that you can do. But let me put it to you in 4 words. So this is for your listeners.
Okay.
I went to a course once. I thought it was on practice management, and it was miswritten. It was a guy named Harvey Sarner, who was a financial guy. I was maybe 33 years old, and I went with a friend of mine, Fred Kriegel, who's a prosthodontist in New York. We go there, and we are the youngest people in the room by 30 years. There's all these old guys there, these bold, gray-haired guys, and I turned to Fred. I go, "What? They're in practice management here?" And so Harvey Sarner gets up there, who was also very old. He goes, I think there was a mistake in the brochure. He goes, some of you may be here for practice management. It's really retirement strategy.
Oh my
He
God,
says,
that's nothing like it.
yes. He says, but I'll give you the practice management course. He says, I'll do that right now. It's 4 words. Be nice to people. And I'll never forget that. And it's
Hmm.
like we learned that in kindergarten, just be nice. But be nice, you have to be present and you have to slow down and you
Yeah.
have to take time. And you can't do that when you're doing DRGs and you got 10 minutes per patient. You got 15-minute blocks that you got to do.
Yeah.
The most frequent thing I hear from my team in my office, they go, hurry up, get the next patient. I go, and I turn to them in front of the patient. I do this all the time. I go, I don't care if there are 15 patients there with the patient listening to me. I
Hmm.
turn to my patient. I say, I'm here with you now. Do you want me to rush so I can see the next patient? I said, because so next time, if you're waiting 5 minutes for me, you realize that I'm with somebody else giving them the care that they need. I said, I'm going to be present for you. And that's
Hmm.
one of the things I learned about 15 years ago. Slow down. I
Hmm.
learned that when I was in the office with my father. He was having something cut out of his face. He was seeing a dermatologist. And this Dr. Ostreicher, I was still in dental school, and I walked into Dr. Ostreicher's waiting room, and there were 30 people there. And I go back for my father, and he was the only doctor, and the 30 people in the waiting room. And Dr. Ostreicher was like, my father was the only patient he'd ever seen. He
Hmm.
was so interested in his face. I'm looking at this. I go, that's what I want to be like. I don't want a patient to know that I'm thinking about my marriage, my financial situation, my kid not getting into the college that I want,
Yeah. Yeah.
or all the other patients that are there. I'm there for that one patient. So if the most important thing is be present and look at your practice through the eyes of a patient. Go in there like you are a patient and sit there and look at everything. Look for everything that's dirty. Now,
Yeah.
one of the tips that we have somebody in my office that is assigned just to do that. They are
Hmm.
chief of hospitality, and her name is Taylor, and her job is to go around and to make sure that the toilet paper is filled, make sure that there's toothbrushes there, make sure that the spot's taken care of, that the rug is clean when it needs to be clean, make sure the staff gets lunch ordered, if it's
Hmm.
late, pop in, help them out, and to make sure that every patient gets a wow experience. Give patient a toothbrush. Oh, here's 3 or 4 for your whole family. What's it
Yeah.
cost? $4? It's
Yeah.
it's who people like stuff for free. It's amazing. It's amazing. You give
Yeah.
something like that. It's like, wow, yeah, I'll take that. Okay. I know
Yeah.
I went on a bit of a rant here, but I'm very passionate about this.
Yeah, no, I get it. And it leads me to my next, it's a kind of a theme question I ask because a lot of this, it seems to me, it starts with mindset and sort of your internal voice. And so the question is, so now you're out lecturing about this and you're trying to, sort of evangelize people to do more people to do this, but you get objections, right? And you've sort of hit some of these in passing. What kind of objections do you get from people when you say, look, man, spend the time, tune it out, you give them the time they need, forget about everything, for example, what kind of objections do you get and what kind of responses? Because you said earlier, you didn't say it this way, but you know, people generally speaking, they'll change things when they perceive a problem.
Right.
But if you've got 30 people in the waiting room, and even if you're treating them like crap and every day you've got 30 or whatever, you don't necessarily perceive a problem.
Right.
So, what kind of objections do you get and how do you respond to them? It could be anywhere. Don't take my lead in as anything to guide you.
Yeah, the 30 patients in the waiting room was just for Dr. Ostreicher. I don't have that.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah,
But maybe you schedule it that way where it's not,
yeah,
you
yeah,
could if
right.
you did it differently, but yeah.
All right, so let's take this way. Anytime there's a problem,
Mhm.
okay, people will come to me and go, I can't because, okay. And I tell them, I go, you like being the victim? I go, how does it feel to be a victim? Your doctors that call you, they're victims. I
Mhm.
can't because of this. I can't because of this. I can't this. All right. So the first thing I have them do is I go write down the problem. All right.
Mhm.
And then tell me why there's a problem there. So they have to start to think about it. I give them a thinking tool.
Mhm.
So and then I say, well, what can you do to change it? I'm not really sure. So then here's the important question. I go, what's your part in it?
Mm.
What's your part in creating that problem? And then no one wants to look at that. Because if you can't, when I say you, I mean if I can't look at my part in the problem,
Mhm.
then I can't get a solution. So
Mhm.
I don't care. I don't care what the problem is. Every problem I get, and they say this out in Silicon Valley. I'm very influenced by all the people out there and all the entrepreneurs. I read a lot about them and
Mhm.
try to hang out with them. They're not like me. I mean, a little bit, but not. I'm not really one of those guys. But I love their thinking process. And every year I go out to a conference at Silicon Valley, and I put myself in a room with 300 guys that are just doing things that I'm not doing. I'm the only dentist in that room.
Mhm.
Thinking, and they don't think they never become victims. These guys.
Mm.
Steve Jobs is not a victim. Okay,
Yeah.
Bill Gates not a victim. Mark Zuckerberg not a victim. Elon Musk not a victim. These guys, I mean, what has Elon Musk done? I mean, people were going to say, well, he's crazy, he's this and that. Well, he doesn't care. I mean, he's just creating. He's got $4 billion, four companies that each worth $1 billion. He didn't do that by saying it can't be done.
Yeah.
So he says, okay, what's the problem? And said, okay, what's my part in it? Let's get it done. So I think people have to start to be very, very open about that because my team does that all the time. They come to me and go, Sarah's doing this to me and blah, blah, blah. It's the old copy machine. I'm trying to get to the copy machine, but Sarah's taking it the whole time. So I call the two people and then they're complaining. I go, here, and I give them each a form. I go, what happened? Okay. What's the cause? What's your part in it? And what's the solution?
Mhm.
What happened? What's the cause? What's your part in it? What's your solution? When you take responsibility for your part in it, then you can come up with a solution.
So what do you say to people who say, well, that's my front desk. I gave it to them. And they,
Right. Well, if you don't take responsibility for your front desk, then I'm sorry, there's going to be no opportunity to fix it.
mm,
One of the expressions that I use in my life is that every problem is an opportunity. So
mhm.
there's always an opportunity. What's the opportunity here? And it's going to be a great opportunity. So if my front desk is not doing a very good job, it's because I didn't give them the training. Now, by the way, there's only one person like me in the office, and
Mhm.
it's me. There's
Mhm.
one person like you.
Mhm.
Everybody's an individual. Are we on? Is this being video here or not?
Video, yes,
Okay.
but
So
not live stream.
okay. So here's a video.
Yeah.
Okay, video. See this here? This is called a culture index. All right.
Okay.
We haven't talked about this much. This is from Michael Hall for Culture Index, and I strongly recommend that you use this to hire. Here's another culture index. And what you're looking at here when you look at this culture index is you see a bunch of dots, right?
Mhm.
Okay, dots, this is who the person is, and this is who they are at work. Well, this person over here, these dots mean something to me. You don't know anything about them because you haven't taken the course. But I look at this, and in 2 seconds, I see that Ashley is very slow moving. She's very deliberate. She's not going to lead. She doesn't have a big personality, but she never gets upset. So guess what? Ashley's never going to figure out anything. I have to create the banks of the river for Ashley and tell her exactly what to do. Once she gets to training, she becomes phenomenal.
Mhm.
Ashley is one of my top hygienists. But if I just threw her in there with no
Mhm.
training, she's not
Yeah.
going to be good. Now, most front desks don't get any training. They just get thrown up there and they're told, do a good job. They don't know what that means.
Mhm.
I have somebody in my office,
Yeah.
Chelsea. I hired her from Macy's. She was a manager there. She's got a big personality and she's very friendly and she never gets upset, but she is not detailed. Okay. And I
Mm.
just put her in head of my study club because, well, we didn't have anybody doing it. And so we had a meeting yesterday and she came up, she's smiling. She goes, hey, we got 12 people. I go, where's the printout? I don't have it. How many people are we looking? How many people we send the email to? I don't know. Could I see what's in the envelope? They're already sealed. So all those details, she wasn't taught.
Yeah.
I spent 45 minutes with two other teammates, somebody who was very detailed. They said, well, this is what we should do. This is what we should do. And then I had my creative guy there, Jose. Jose's not going to do those details, but Jose designed the cover of my book. Okay.
Mhm.
Jose took the picture in the back of my book.
Hmm.
Did all that stuff for me. He's beautiful. He designed all of our websites. He's a creative. He's not
Hmm.
a marketer. Everybody has a strength. If you're having somebody at the front desk that's struggling, they're not getting the right training, or they may not be in the right job.
Yeah.
We have something else. We work with a company called EOS,
Hmm.
operating system, and they have an expression called "right people, right seats."
Hmm.
If you put me at the front desk, I would burn
Flame
out.
out disaster. Yeah.
Disaster. Okay,
Same.
nice for a couple of days, right? Yeah, I have to call insurance companies.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
yeah. But you give me a microphone and you ask me to talk to you about this
All day
uh,
long. Yeah.
with no stress.
Yeah.
Me doing
Yeah.
surgery, it's relaxing because I've
Yeah.
done it 40 years. The door closes. People go, "Oh, you must be stressed. You did surgery all day." Oh, that's when I relax
Yeah. Right.
because it's predictable.
Yeah. And you
Very
made a point. I want to follow up on something, and then I want to I have a couple of wrap-up questions I ask
sure.
every guest. You said in passing, do you have to teach them? Yes. And I just pictured a bunch of people listening going, oh, do I really have to teach somebody to answer the phone? Kind of, sort of, yes. Not like the call script necessarily, but you have to show
Oh,
them what you think, you have
oh,
to show them what you think good looks like. And really, that's gotta, whatever that means to you, because no, you don't have to teach somebody how to talk to somebody. I mean, you kind of sort of, but that doesn't mean that the way they do it is going to align with the way you believe it needs to be done. And you've got to have a point of view on that. So yes, there is some teaching, but it's not like classroom teaching, like you learn how to, cut into bone. It's just like you have a way that you want things done in your practice. And if you don't have no idea what that looks like, well, step one is figure out what you want that to look like.
right,
And if you just, I see this. Oh, I threw it at the front desk and they didn't get it done. And I always say to myself, did they have a freaking clue on what you were looking for?
right,
Really? And do you know what that even looks like? And this is your name's on this thing, man. Your reputation's on this thing. And you can blame them, I guess, but seriously, every once in a while I hear a story of somebody like I've gone through X number of these people. I say to myself, my friend, you are the common denominator. It's not them. Serious?
yeah.
Don't you? How come you don't get that yet? Like, seriously? And who's not telling you that anyway? So yes.
I have a friend's wife that I was like I had some situations personally with some people where I didn't get along with this person, not in the office. These are social friends, and she says, well, I think Mike's the common denominator. So this couple calls me common denominator. It's become my
Yeah.
nickname. It's always
Okay.
the common denominator, yeah. And that nobody they don't, and that's again the dentist or the physician doesn't want to take responsibility. They could have the victim mentality. I always say to people, I go, how's it feel sitting in that chair? They go, what are you
Mm,
talking about? I go, that victim's chair.
mm,
I go, not too good. And
yeah.
I mean, I give people the 90-second rule. Everybody, you get 90 seconds to whine. After 90 seconds, I'm done because I know what your problem is. It's you. Let's talk about that. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. This is like the easiest thing on earth to identify. It's always the
Can I
mirror.
make a point about the training? Because a lot of doctors on here go, oh, I don't want to train. Well, you don't have to train. There are training people,
Hmm.
and you're gonna have to hire some of them, and you may make a lot of mistakes. You
Hmm.
may hire the wrong people to come in there.
Hmm.
So I actually am sort of good at this, so I like it. I
Hmm.
like training. I like my staff. I love my
Hmm.
team.
Hmm.
Most doctors hate their team. They go,
Well, then there's that. It's like,
yeah.
Jesus, if ever there was like a bright spotlight on a mirror on you, I
Hmm.
mean, if you hate the people you work with every day, why do you? I don't know.
That's the
Yeah.
problem. And that's why people don't want to work because they
Yeah.
get, and they didn't teach you this when you went to medical or dental school. They didn't say, hey, look, by the way, you got to build a team. You got to lead this team. You know,
Hmm.
Tom Brady hated his offensive line. He would never win the Super Bowl.
Yeah. It's one of the things that agitates me as I've been in this now for a number of years is, every year medical, dental, provider training schools, whatever, send a whole bunch of graduates out there into the marketplace, a healthy proportion, which are going to become business owners. And not only is there zero attention paid to it during training, but a number of them just kind of look down their nose in disgust at the thought of it. And I'm like, what do you do? You're sending lambs out to slaughter. It's just irresponsible. I don't know what to do about it. But it really bothers me. It just really bothers me. They themselves work in businesses, even if they're not the CEO of it, so to speak. But it just
Right.
really bothers me.
Well, that's my moonshot is to get this book into every training program.
Yeah.
And it's, but the people who are in the training program, I have some, missionaries out there that are promoting this all the time, but those are people that already get it. The
Right.
well,
Salmon
people who want to
upstream.
listen to me are the people who already know it.
Yeah. Yeah. You've got the converts already. So, Michael, there's usually a couple of questions I ask every guest and kind of wrap up, but we've hit so much. And I just want to ask you, I'm going to go to the second one, which is we've caught a listener's attention. They're like, you know what, he's right. But sometimes people just don't know where to start
Right.
on a larger idea. So anything, and this could be go get your book, whatever you think. What's if you were sitting with somebody and said, Michael, how do I get started on this? As soon as they're done listening, super simple,
First of
practical.
all, I mean, I would buy the book, read it, take notes.
Hmm.
Now I'm not saying that because I make money selling the book. I mean, maybe I'll make a buck.
Right.
But that's not why I wrote the book, to make money selling it. But that's a great resource. I also have a series of videos that you can get on my website. There are 10, 15-minute modules with a workbook. The
And this is
workbook,
michaelsonic.com.
yeah,
And it's
the workbook,
Sonick. Yeah.
Michael Sonick. This workbook here has about 40 pages in it, and you do it with your team, and you sit down, you watch a 15-minute module once a week, and then you flick through it. And then once you're done with that, then you start to look at your business. You'll understand a lot more about your business, because most people never ask these questions.
Hmm.
At the end of every chapter in my book, there's a series of questions. But I think, one of the first things to do is decide, do you want to make any changes, and what do you want? And I spend 2 days every 3 months up in Toronto, with a coach, and just think. And no, not many people do that. And
Hmm.
every young doctor I talk to, they're all too busy. But I spend 2 days a week. This is one of them when I'm talking to you. I'm not making any money right now. I call them
Hmm.
buffer days. I'm not on vacation. I'm not relaxing right now. I'm talking to you, and I'm going to do this for the rest of the day, talk to people. These are days where I think and plan. And
Hmm.
I plan, like, what does my practice want to look like? So you start to do some goal setting. And if you don't know how to do that, start to find some people to teach you.
Hmm.
All the greats do a lot of goal setting. They do it daily, monthly, quarterly, yearly, 5 years, and look at your practice. I mean, when I was 30 years old, I said I wanted to do this. And everyone looked at me and goes, "You're an asshole."
Really?
In person. I go, "No, that's what I want to do." Because I wasn't sure. Because I started off working in a mall.
Hmm.
And if they want to honor in private practice, and I want to have a really good practice, and I want to treat ideally, I don't want to take insurance. I want to do exactly what I think is needed, and I want to teach. And eventually, I like to teach all over the world and get paid for it. And I'd like to know all the top people in my field and have a relationship with all of them, personal relationship. And that's what was my goal, and that's slowly I worked at it, and I became a success in 30 years. So that does take work, and a lot of people want the results without doing the work. There's no way around it.
And they want them fast.
Yeah, yeah, nothing's fast. In my field now, I don't know if you know much about immediate implants. Everything's immediate. Take out the teeth, put the implants in, and I joke around. I tell my patients I'm the slowest, most experienced implant surgeon in the country. I said, I'm going to do it slowly. We're going to build the bone first. We're going to do it. And I'm an outlier because I'm doing it slower. And if you
Hmm.
look at Instagram, everyone's getting perfect results in one visit. And, it's the same way building the practice took a long time. Now I can lay down the track and teach people how to do that. I don't do it. I'm not a consultant,
Hmm.
right? But I do teach a series of courses. And if you want me to come in and teach, I can teach some of these programs to your team. But it does take time, and you just got to make a decision. Do you want to do this or not?
Hmm.
And you got to do a lot of education in this area. And another thing that you can do is create a mastermind group. Find 10 people. They don't have to be in your town. Call other people that have the same goals, and get together. I have 3 or 4 of those, and we get together once a month, every other month. During COVID, we got together once a week. It really was a godsend. It really
Yeah.
do that. And we COVID was one of my best years. I mean, financially and setting the future. That's when I
Hmm.
wrote the book.
Hmm.
We cleaned everything up. Not that I was happy for COVID, but there was a great opportunity for me. And a lot of people looked at, oh, COVID. I said, oh, COVID was great.
I was similar. I'm like, man, I've got some time. Let me
Yeah, let's
do
figure
some
that out.
systems things and things that are gonna, last.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Michael, thank you so much. I really appreciate this for coming on and opening our eyes. We've had this topic in a couple of different iterations, but this is definitely a fresh one. So thank you very much for coming on. Um, you gave us contact information. We're going to put that in the show notes. So now people have yet another way to get a hold of you if they want to do so. Couple of quick points before we wrap up. First, if you're someone like Michael who owns a private practice and has a lot of experience or experience in some part of the business side and you think others would benefit from, or if you're someone like me, us, we serve private practice owners, same thing, some business experience to share. Either way, please come on Practice Care so you can tell the world about it. In Michael's show notes, in every show notes, there's a link, a couple of clicks, super easy. Just tell us what's on your mind and we'll get you scheduled as soon as we can. And finally, you got to subscribe to Practice Care. We drop a new episode every week. Every week, really, the easiest way to stay up to date is if you subscribe, because then you're going to get notifications. So please do that. Practice Care, one word, search for it. You will find us, and then you can subscribe. Thanks very much. And until next time.